There are places designed to hold thousands of people, places that buzz with activity during the day, filled with voices and footsteps and the constant hum of humanity. But at night, when those places empty out, when the lights dim and the crowds disappear, something changes. The spaces themselves become aware, hungry. And if you find yourself trapped in one of these liminal spaces after hours, you'll discover that you're not as alone as you think. What you're about to hear are 5 documented accounts from people who worked in or became trapped inside empty malls and airports at night. These are real experiences, verified by security footage, corroborated by multiple witnesses, and backed by evidence that shouldn't exist. Story by Daniel Cross. The first account comes from Marcus Webb, a security guard who worked the night shift at Westfield Shopping Center in New Jersey from 2017 to 2019. Marcus documented his experiences in a series of voice recordings on his phone, recordings that were later submitted as evidence when he quit his job and filed a report with local police. His first recording, dated March 3rd, 2018, begins normally enough. He's making his rounds, checking doors, ensuring the building is secure. You can hear his footsteps echoing through empty corridors. Then, around 1:15 a.m., his voice changes, becomes uncertain. He says, "Okay, something weird just happened. I'm on the 2nd floor, near the food court. I just saw someone walk past the Starbucks. I called out, asked them how they got in here, but they didn't respond. They just kept walking, headed toward the east corridor. I'm going to check it out." The recording continues with Marcus following the figure. His breathing gets heavier. His footsteps quicken. Then he stops. There's silence for almost 30 seconds before he speaks again, and this time his voice is shaking. There's no one here. The corridor ends at a locked emergency exit. No way out. No stores to hide in. But I watched someone walk down here not 2 minutes ago. They didn't come back past me. They couldn't have gone through that exit. It's alarmed and it didn't go off. So where did they go? Marcus checks every store entrance along the corridor. All locked, all secure. The figure has vanished. He ends the recording saying he's going to review security footage. Marcus's next recording, made 3 hours later, is more disturbing. His voice is tight with fear. I checked the cameras. There's footage of me walking through the food court at 1:15, but there's no one else on camera. No figure walking past Starbucks. No person in the corridor. Just me, alone, following nothing. But I know what I saw. I watched someone walk down that corridor. Someone real, someone solid. The cameras say I was chasing empty air, but I know better. There was someone there, and here's what really scares me. On the footage, right before I enter the east corridor, I stop. I'm looking at something. My body language is clear. I'm watching someone, following someone with my eyes. But the camera shows nothing in front of me. Nothing I'm looking at. Just empty space. Marcus's recordings over the next several months document increasing strange occurrences. He sees people regularly now, always after midnight, always disappearing into corridors or around corners, never visible on cameras. He starts recognizing some of them. A woman in a red coat who walks past the jewelry store every night at 1:30 a.m. A man in a business suit who stands motionless in front of the closed bookstore. A teenage girl who sits on a bench near the fountain, crying silently. Marcus tries to approach them, to communicate, but they never acknowledge him. They walk their routes, perform their actions and vanish, like recordings playing on a loop, like ghosts stuck in routines they can't break. Then Marcus finds the newspaper articles. In the mall's administrative office, he discovers old files documenting deaths that occurred in the building over the years. A woman named Patricia Reeves, who suffered a heart attack near the jewelry store in 1993. She'd been wearing a red coat. A businessman named Thomas Grant, who collapsed in front of the bookstore in 2001. A teenage girl named Emma, who killed herself in the parking garage in 2015. Every figure Marcus has been seeing matches someone who died in or near the mall. He's been watching death recordings, impressions left in the space itself, echoes of final moments playing over and over in the empty hours when no living person is there to interfere with the playback. Marcus's final recording, dated September 12, 2019, is the one that made him quit. His voice is barely a whisper. It's 3 a.m. I'm in the central atrium, and they're all here. Every figure I've ever seen. Patricia in her red coat, Thomas in his suit, Emma on the bench. But there are dozens more, maybe hundreds, all standing perfectly still, all looking at me. And here's what made me drop my flashlight. They're not echoes anymore. They're not recordings. They're aware. One of them, an old man I've never seen before, he walked up to me, got close enough that I could feel cold radiating from him, and he said, "You see us. You've always seen us. Most security guards ignore us, look right through us. But you see us. That means you're starting to fade too, starting to become like us. Give it another year of night shifts in this place, and you'll be one of the figures someone else sees. Walking your rounds forever, trapped in the empty hours, becoming part of the mall's memory." I quit right then, walked out, and never went back. Marcus Webb's recordings were investigated by paranormal researchers. They visited the mall at night with equipment and documented multiple cold spots, electromagnetic anomalies, and yes, several visual sightings of figures that matched Marcus's descriptions. The mall's management refused to comment, but here's the detail that validates Marcus's experience. Of the 17 security guards who've worked night shift at that mall over the past 30 years, 6 have simply vanished, clocked in for their shift, made their rounds, and were never seen again. Security footage shows them walking their routes, checking doors, and then, at some point in the night, they walk around a corner or into a corridor and don't come back. They don't clock out. They don't leave the building. They just disappear into the empty spaces and become part of the mall's permanent night shift. The second account comes from Jennifer Lawson, a gate agent for United Airlines who worked at Denver International Airport. In November 2020, Jennifer was assigned to close down Gate B37 after the last flight departed at 11 p.m. It was a routine task. She'd done it hundreds of times. Lock up the desk, power down the computers, check the seating area for forgotten items. But that night, as she was finishing her closing procedures, she noticed something odd. The gate across from hers, B38, showed a departure board with flight information. But B38 hadn't been used in years. It was closed for renovations. The seating area was blocked off with construction barriers. There shouldn't have been any flight information displayed. Jennifer walked over to get a closer look. The board showed United Flight 629 to Chicago, departing at 11:40 p.m., now boarding. Jennifer knew there was no such flight. The last departure to Chicago had left at 9 p.m. She pulled out her phone and checked the airport system. No Flight 629 in the database. But as she stood there staring at the board, she heard an announcement over the PA system. United Flight 629 to Chicago is now boarding at Gate B38. All passengers should proceed to the gate. Jennifer felt her skin prickle. She was the only person in this section of the terminal. The concourse was empty. Who was making that announcement? She looked at the blocked-off seating area and felt her breath catch in her throat. There were people sitting there, dozens of them. Passengers with carry-on bags, checking their phones, reading magazines. They were sitting in seats that were covered with tarps, sitting in an area that was physically closed for construction. And they looked wrong, faded, like photographs that had been left in the sun too long. Jennifer could see through them to the construction barriers behind them. She stumbled backward, her heart racing, and then she noticed something that made everything worse. One of the passengers stood up, a man in his 40s, wearing a business suit. He picked up his briefcase and walked toward the blocked-off jetway, walked right through the construction barrier as if it wasn't there. Other passengers followed, a whole line of translucent people boarding a flight that didn't exist to a plane that wasn't there. Jennifer ran back to her gate and called her supervisor. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. She reported what she'd seen, knowing how insane it sounded. Her supervisor, Tom Martinez, told her to wait there. He was coming down. When Tom arrived 15 minutes later, the departure board at B38 was blank. The seating area was empty except for construction equipment. But Tom didn't dismiss Jennifer's story. Instead, he went pale and asked her to follow him to the airport's administrative offices. There, he showed her something that explained everything and made it so much worse. In November 1987, United Flight 629 from Denver to Chicago crashed shortly after takeoff. All passengers and crew were killed. 143 people dead. The crash happened at 11:40 p.m., right after the plane pushed back from gate B38. The airport had closed that gate permanently afterward, never used it again. But every year, on the anniversary of the crash, gate agents working the late shift reported the same thing. The departure board activating, the PA system announcing the flight, passengers appearing in the closed seating area, the ghosts of Flight 629 eternally boarding a plane they'll never reach their destination on. Tom told Jennifer that the airport doesn't officially acknowledge these sightings, but they have a policy. No one is assigned to work near Gate B38 on November nights. Gates on either side are kept closed. That section of the terminal is avoided, but someone always forgets to update the assignment board. Someone always ends up working nearby, and they always see the passengers. Tom showed Jennifer incident reports going back decades. Gate agents, maintenance workers, cleaning staff, all reporting the same phenomena, all describing translucent passengers boarding a ghost flight. Some reports included additional details that made Jennifer's blood run cold. Some witnesses reported that the passengers look at them, make eye contact, and occasionally, one of the passengers will walk over to the living person and speak. They ask what time it is. They ask if the flight is delayed. They don't realize they're dead, don't understand that they've been boarding the same flight for 33 years. Jennifer requested a transfer to a different concourse. It was granted immediately. But here's the detail that haunts her. Before she left that night, she walked back to gate B38 one more time, stood at a distance, watching. And on the departure board, even though it should have been blank, she could see flickering text, not the current information, old-style display, the kind they used in the 80s. And the text cycled through the same message over and over. Flight 629, delayed. Flight 629, delayed. Flight 629, delayed. As if the flight had been in an eternal state of delay for 33 years. Passengers waiting in limbo, never taking off, never landing, just existing in the space between departure and arrival. And Jennifer wondered how many other airports have gates like this. ghost flights that eternally board, passengers trapped in terminals forever waiting for planes that will never take them home. The third account involves an overnight cleaning crew at Mall of America in Minnesota. In March 2021, 5 members of the cleaning team were working the night shift, which ran from midnight to 6 a.m. The team leader, Carlos Rodriguez, kept detailed logs of their work, including locations and times for each area they cleaned. That night, they were assigned to the 3rd floor of the north section. At approximately 2:30 a.m., Carlos noticed something unusual in the central rotunda area. The lights, which should have been dimmed to nighttime settings, were at full brightness, and there was music playing. Not the usual mall music that played during business hours, but something older. Big band music from the 1940s, tinny and distant, like it was coming from very far away. Carlos gathered his team, and they approached the rotunda together. What they saw made them all stop in their tracks. The rotunda was full of people. Not translucent, not obviously ghosts. These looked like real solid people, hundreds of them. But they were dressed wrong, clothing from decades past. Women in long dresses with elaborate hats, men in suits and fedoras, children in old-fashioned outfits. They were shopping, walking between stores that were dark and closed, carrying packages, talking and laughing, moving through the space as if it were a bustling shopping day in some other era. But here's what made it impossible. The stores they were entering and exiting didn't exist. Where there's currently a Gap, they were walking into a store with a sign that read Woolworths. Where there's now an Apple store, they entered something called Kresge's. The people were shopping in a version of the mall that had never existed, or perhaps shopping in stores that existed somewhere else, occupying the same physical space but displaced in time. Carlos's team stood frozen, watching. One of his crew members, Diana Chen, pulled out her phone and started recording. The footage, which was later analyzed by researchers, shows exactly what they saw. Hundreds of people from another era, shopping in stores that flicker between their old names and current names. In the video, you can see the moment when one of the shoppers notices the cleaning crew. An elderly woman in a floral dress stops walking. She turns slowly and looks directly at the camera. Her expression changes from pleasant to confused to horrified. She points at Carlos's team, and her mouth opens in a silent scream. Other shoppers begin to notice. They all turn, they all stare, and their faces all show the same progression. Confusion, realization, horror, as if they're suddenly aware that they're in the wrong time, or that the cleaning crew is. Then the lights flickered, just once, and when they came back on, the rotunda was empty. The music had stopped. The shoppers were gone. Carlos's team stood in silence, trying to process what they'd witnessed. Diana checked her phone. The video had stopped recording automatically at the exact moment the lights flickered, but the footage she captured was there, solid, undeniable. They reported it to mall management immediately, and here's where the story takes another turn. Mall management didn't seem surprised. The security supervisor pulled Carlos into his office and showed him something he'd never seen before. A binder, thick, filled with reports from cleaning crews, security guards, maintenance workers, reports spanning 30 years, all describing the same phenomenon. People from other eras appearing in the mall at night, shopping in stores that don't exist, walking through a mall that's both the current one and some other version overlaid on top of it. The security supervisor, a man named Robert Hayes, explained that the mall exists in a unique situation. It's one of the largest shopping centers in the world, built on a site that's had commercial activity for over a century. Before the mall, there was a department store. Before that, a market. Before that, a trading post. Layers of commercial activity going back generations. And somehow, the space retains memory of all those layers. At night, when the current layer is empty and quiet, the other layers bleed through. The past becomes visible. The people who shopped there decades ago continue shopping, unaware that time has moved forward without them. Hayes told Carlos that some researchers believe these aren't ghosts, they're recordings, impressions left in space-time. But others believe there's something more disturbing, that these people are trapped in loops, reliving the same shopping trips over and over, eternally browsing stores they'll never leave, eternally purchasing items they'll never take home. Carlos finished his shift that night, but put in his 2-week notice the next day. So did Diana and 2 other members of the crew. But here's the detail that made me track down this story. Diana's video, the footage she captured, it's been analyzed by multiple experts, and they found something that wasn't visible to the naked eye. In the background of the video, behind the shoppers from the past, there are other figures, shadowy, indistinct. These figures aren't shopping. They're standing still, watching. And in enhanced slow-motion playback, you can see that some of these shadow figures are wearing modern clothes, jeans, t-shirts. One is wearing a vest that looks identical to the ones mall security guards wear. These figures aren't from the past. They're from the present, or maybe the future, trapped in the same way the shoppers are trapped, standing in the background of someone else's eternal shopping trip, waiting for the next person to join them. And some researchers believe those shadow figures are former mall employees, people who worked there at night, people who saw too much, who became part of the space's memory, who now exist as background characters in an endlessly repeating loop of commercial activity that spans decades. The 4th account comes from O'Hare International Airport in Chicago, one of the busiest airports in the world during the day. But at night, certain sections close down, gates shut, concourses empty, and according to maintenance supervisor Lisa Torres, that's when the airport shows its true nature. Lisa has worked at O'Hare for 20 years, almost exclusively night shifts. She submitted dozens of incident reports about unusual occurrences. Most were filed away and forgotten. But in 2022, she started documenting everything with a tape recorder, creating an audio log of her nightly experiences. And what she's captured is disturbing. Lisa's recordings describe a phenomenon she calls the eternal passengers. These are people she sees regularly during her night rounds. People who appear to be waiting for flights, sitting in gate areas that are closed, standing at windows looking out at empty tarmac, walking slowly through deserted corridors. At first, Lisa thought they were people who'd missed their flights or were stuck overnight due to cancellations. But when she approached them to offer help, they'd vanish. Not fade away, vanish instantly, like they'd never been there at all. She started paying closer attention, started noting patterns, and she realized these eternal passengers appear in the same locations at the same times every night. A woman in a blue dress sits at gate C11 every night at 2 a.m. A man with a briefcase stands at the windows by gate E7 at 3:30 a.m. A family with 2 children walks through Terminal 3 at 4:15 a.m. Always the same people, always the same times, always the same actions. Lisa researched the history of the airport and found something chilling. Every one of her eternal passengers matches someone who died at O'Hare. The woman in the blue dress, Susan Mitchell, had a heart attack at Gate 11 in 1998. The man with the briefcase, David Park, collapsed from an aneurysm while waiting for a connecting flight in 2003. The family with 2 children, the Harrises, were killed in a car accident in the airport parking garage in 2010. They're all dead, but they're still here, still waiting, still trying to catch flights they'll never board, stuck in the airport for eternity. And Lisa has documented over 40 of these eternal passengers. 40 people who died at O'Hare and never left, who remain in the liminal space of the airport, forever in transit, forever waiting. But Lisa's recordings contain something even more disturbing. She describes instances where the eternal passengers become aware of her, where they look at her directly, where they try to communicate. She has several recordings of these attempts. In one, dated August 17, 2022, at 3:47 a.m., Lisa is walking through Terminal 5 when she hears a voice calling her name. She turns and sees a man she's never seen before. He's wearing clothes from the 1970s, bell-bottoms, wide-collar shirt. He looks solid, real. He asks Lisa, "What year is it?" Lisa tells him it's 2022. The man's face contorts with confusion and pain. He says, "That can't be right. I'm waiting for flight 4802 to Los Angeles. It boards in 20 minutes. It's 1976, July 14th, 1976. Lisa gently tells him that it's not 1976 anymore, that it's been 46 years. The man begins to cry. He says, "I've been waiting for 46 years. I've been sitting at that gate for 46 years. Then he looks at Lisa with desperate eyes and asks, "How do I leave? How do I stop waiting?" Lisa doesn't have an answer, and before she can respond, the man vanishes. Lisa has tried to help the eternal passengers. She's attempted to guide them toward exits. She's told them they need to leave, but they can't hear her most of the time. And when they can, when they become briefly aware, they're trapped by their own inability to accept that their flights are never coming, that they're dead, that they need to let go of the airport and move on to wherever the dead are supposed to go. They're caught in loops of expectation, waiting for flights that departed decades ago or never existed at all. And Lisa believes the airport feeds on this waiting, that the space itself sustains on the energy of anticipation, that every person who dies in the airport becomes fuel for the building's existence, trapped in eternal transit, eternal limbo. Lisa's most recent recording, from just 2 months ago, contains a warning. She's discovered something that makes her want to quit, but feels obligated to document. She says, "I've noticed people who aren't dead yet, living people who work here. I've started to see them in 2 places at once. I'll be in Terminal 2 and see one of the other maintenance workers walking toward me. Then I'll turn a corner and see that same person cleaning a different area. When I ask them how they got there so fast, they look at me confused. They weren't in the first location. They don't remember being there, but I saw them. And I've checked security footage. The cameras show them in both places. Simultaneously, it's like they're starting to split, starting to exist in multiple versions. And I think it's because we work nights. We're exposed to the airport when it's empty, when its true nature shows through. And slowly, we're becoming part of it. We're becoming like the eternal passengers, existing in loops, being duplicated across the building. Soon, we won't be able to leave at the end of our shifts. We'll just walk out the door and find ourselves back inside, walking our routes, cleaning our sections, forever, trapped in the night shift that never ends." Lisa Torres still works at O'Hare, but according to her co-workers, she'd been acting strange lately, repeating herself, forgetting conversations. And several people have reported seeing her in locations she couldn't possibly be, seeing her at the far end of a terminal while simultaneously watching her work right in front of them. Lisa is beginning to split, beginning to exist in multiple places, beginning her journey toward becoming one of the eternal passengers, forever working at an airport that never truly sleeps. The fifth and final account connects all these stories because it suggests something terrifying about empty commercial spaces. In 2023, a researcher named Dr. Alan Price studied the phenomenon of liminal spaces for a university project. He specifically focused on malls and airports, places designed to be transitional, places where people are meant to pass through, not stay. He interviewed security guards, cleaning crews, maintenance workers, people who work in these spaces during the empty hours. And he found a consistent pattern across every location he studied. Everyone reported seeing people who shouldn't be there. Everyone described figures from other times. Everyone felt watched. And everyone, after working enough night shifts, started experiencing dissociative episodes, moments where they'd lose time, find themselves in different locations with no memory of walking there, see multiple versions of themselves in mirrors or caught on security cameras. Dr. Price theorized that these commercial spaces, these liminal zones, they exist partially outside normal time and space. They're designed to be nowhere, just spaces between origin and destination. And that quality, that intentional liminality, makes them unstable, malleable. During the day, when thousands of people occupy them, the spaces maintain solidity. The presence of so many living consciousnesses anchors them to our reality. But at night, when they empty out, they begin to drift. They connect to other times, other versions of themselves, past iterations, future possibilities, and anyone trapped in them during those empty hours becomes unstuck along with the space. They begin to see through time. They leave impressions that replay endlessly. They start to exist in multiple moments simultaneously. They become eternal passengers or eternal workers, trapped in loops they can't escape. Dr. Price's research paper was published in an obscure academic journal. It was largely ignored by mainstream science, but it's been read extensively by people who work night shifts in malls and airports, people who recognize their own experiences in his descriptions, people who understand that they're slowly being absorbed by the spaces they work in. Dr. Price included a section in his paper about prevention, ways to avoid becoming trapped. He recommended never working alone in these spaces at night, never staying past your shift, never investigating strange sounds or following figures you see. Always maintain connection to the outside world. Keep your phone on you. Call people periodically. Anchor yourself to external reality, because the spaces will try to make you forget there's anything beyond their walls. They'll try to convince you that the empty mall or airport is all that exists. And if you believe that, even for a moment, you'll never leave. Dr. Price's final section was a warning. He wrote, "Based on my research, I believe there are thousands of people currently trapped in these liminal spaces. People who physically left at the end of their shifts, but left copies behind. Echoes, impressions, parts of themselves that couldn't detach from the space. These trapped fragments continue to work, continue to wait, continue to exist in empty malls and airports around the world. And those fragments are aware. They know they're trapped. They can see the living people who pass through. And they're desperate. Desperate to communicate. Desperate to warn others. Desperate to find a way out of the eternal night shift. The eternal wait. The eternal limbo of spaces that exist nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. These are 5 accounts from empty malls and airports at night. And if you work in one of these spaces, if you've ever been trapped overnight in a mall or slept in an airport during a long layover, pay attention to what you see in the empty hours. Pay attention to the people who don't quite look right, who fade in and out, who walk routes that loop back on themselves, because those people were once like you. They were security guards, cleaning crews, delayed passengers. They were living people who made the mistake of letting the space claim them. And now they're warnings, evidence that these commercial liminal zones are hungry, that they consume the people who occupy them during the empty hours, that they create eternal loops of activity, eternal shopping, eternal waiting, eternal working. And if you're not careful, if you lose focus for even a moment, you'll join them. You'll become another figure walking empty corridors, another eternal passenger waiting for a flight that will never depart, another copy of yourself that continues working long after the real you has gone home. The spaces are waiting. They're always waiting, and they're incredibly patient, because in liminal zones, time doesn't matter. There's no day or night, no beginning or end, just an eternal empty now. And once you become part of that now, you'll never escape it.